So as of recording, it's been reported that Birmingham have sacked manager Karanka. Let's talk about it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Bit of a quick one coming at you today, but I thought that this one was worth a bit of a discussion really. It's going to affect things down at the bottom of the championship. Now, as of recording, it's not yet officially been confirmed, but all the major news outlets have been reporting that Karanka has lost his job at Birmingham. Now, what we're going to touch on in today's video is what that could actually mean for Birmingham and the rest of their season. We'll look into their survival hopes, but also the overarching mess that's been happening at Birmingham for the past few years now, which stretches way beyond Karanka. Birmingham fans, I want to get your guys' views on this in the comments down below. If you do go on to enjoy this one, do leave a like. Check out the Patreon link to that is linked down below. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. So this news comes off the back of Birmingham losing 3-0 at St Andrews against Bristol City, which adds to their horrendous home form so far this season. A game which was crucial in their survival. They ultimately had no shots on target for. We'll cover that game in a little bit more detail in tomorrow's championship roundup video, but obviously the context to this sacking is quite important really. If we look at the current championship table to the side of us, we can see that Birmingham currently find themselves 21st in the championship. The most perilous position in the league at this point in time really, given the games in hand that Rotherham currently have over them. If we look at the championship home and away form table so far this season, the home form table makes for absolute grim reading for Birmingham fans. They picked up just 12 points at home so far this season. From the 18 home matches they've had, they've won just 3 of them. It's a truly abysmal record at St Andrews this season, and I mean, I'll put my opinion out there first of all. I think this is the right decision to part companies with Karanka. However, there are larger overarching issues which are happening at Birmingham, which we'll get into in the second half of the video. But ultimately, Karanka, at the time I thought this was actually a decent appointment for Birmingham, and I thought they were going to start to head in the right direction under him. You know, the work he's previously done in the championship. I thought they were finally going to nail down a bit of an identity and a philosophy about themselves, and that things would slowly start to head in the right direction. But that's not unfolded whatsoever this season, and even off the pitch, you never feel like Karanka was ever really integrated to within Birmingham. And I know that that's hard to do with the lack of crowds there. You know, it's hard for him and the fans to, you know, have that sort of connection while we've had lockdown and all that sort of thing. But little things like his body language and just the way that he was carrying himself, I think that's frustrated Birmingham fans for quite some time now. Birmingham on the whole have been an excruciatingly poor side to watch so far this season. They've got one of the worst attacking records in the league, having only scored 26 goals. The thing that you expect from Karanka sides traditionally is for them to be defensively quite rigid. That's not been the case. They've conceded 46 goals so far this season, having one of the worst defensive records in the league. The question now in terms of the short term is who actually comes in for the rest of the season, tries to galvanise this squad and get them over the line to ensure they're playing championship football next season, because I think that from here on in it's going to be a real struggle with Rotherham having those games in hand. Now, if we actually take a look at the Birmingham squad, I think there's a whole load of quality in here. I mean, it's a group of players who have serially underperformed so far this season, but there is individual quality in here, and I'd argue more so than some of the other sides who they're competing with in terms of that last relegation spot. So, I mean, if we go down the list in terms of some of the average performances so far this season, Ivan Sunjic has been a player who has completely fallen off a cliff this season. When they originally signed him, I remember Birmingham fans being so excited about this one, you know, an up-and-coming Croatian under-21 midfielder, that worlder he scored against Derby last season. He really had his moments. This season, he's been a shadow of that player so far. Obviously, some of the attacking players that they brought in over the last few seasons, Alan Halilovic was one who came in with quite a lot of pedigree, McGree as well. The likes of Scott Hogan, John Terrell, Lucas Djukovic, Jeremy Bella, Ivan Sanchez. There's players in this squad with serious individual quality, but that's not been a cohesive unit for God knows how long now. And I think that ultimately when we talk about the problems at Birmingham and the overarching problems and issues, they're all going to go back to one man, and that's Dong Ren. Since his arrival at the club, it's been nothing short of like disaster from week to week really. The first controversial decision that a lot of people will go back to is the dismissal of Gary Rowett in 2016. Following on from that, they've just bounced from manager to manager, idea through idea, with no sort of overarching philosophy for the club long term. I think that can be clearly seen by their transfer policy during this sort of time. So after Rowett's departure, Zola comes in, which is an absolute car crash of an appointment. In the 24 games he's in charge for, he wins just 2 of them, leaves them in a perilous position whereby they could be relegated. Hai Redknapp comes in, saves them from relegation, is then given the next season, you know, to plan over all the summer. He's given quite a bit of money to spend as well on the likes of Jota, Harley Dean, Maxime Collin. Hai Redknapp is then dismissed a few games into that next season. Despite having spent all the money in the summer, they then bring in a new sort of way of thinking in Steve Cottrell, an appointment which doesn't go to plan at all. He's then followed by Gary Monk, where things start to take a bit of an upward turn. In terms of the financial situation and what's happening off the pitch for Birmingham, still by no means are they in a great state, but Gary Monk very much got a tune out of this squad. You know, we saw the emergence then of the partnership between Chelams and Djukovic going forward, managed to keep them up in the Championship even with that point deduction. His departure then is a little bit controversial. Following on from that, he's then replaced by Pep Clotter, who was also in the backroom staff at the time then. That appointment doesn't really go to plan. The club was looking to head in a different sort of way with the sort of Clotter ball, if you will, but ultimately I think that he was just a little bit out of his depth, to be honest. Karanka is then brought in, who I think a lot of people at the time saw this as a positive sign for Birmingham moving forward, but once again, another philosophy bouncing from idea to idea with no sort of long-term vision for the club once again. Karanka's appointment hasn't worked out and ultimately has been pretty uninspiring, to say the least, and Birmingham now find themselves in this position that they currently do, where they're staring down the neck of League One at this point in time. And to be honest with you, I think it would take an absolute miracle for them to turn it around from here on in, because I do think that Rotherham will win more matches than they will from now until the end of the season. I think that the way that money's been invested into this squad is probably, I'd say Birmingham and Sheffield Wednesday leading the way in the Championship in terms of the worst recruitment over the past few seasons. They've spent big on players at times when they necessarily didn't need to, and ultimately the balance of the squad is completely skewed. A prime example of that was probably the arrival of Jota, who was absolutely electric from his time at Brentford, playing in a fluid forward 3. He then arrives at Birmingham and is asked to play on the right hand side of a 4-4-2. It's poor recruitment and forward thinking, and ultimately I think that Birmingham have been guilty of that one too many times, and that's now really starting to catch up with them. And I think that things get especially even more grim when you look at the matches that Birmingham have got left for the rest of the season. So even taking into consideration all the matches that Rotherham have currently in hand over them, Birmingham's next 4 matches see them going up against Reading, Watford, Swansea and Brentford. Who sees them picking up more than like a couple of points out of those matches? I certainly don't from this situation. That's all I really had to say for this one though. Birmingham fans, I want to get your guys' views on this in the comments down below, and also any other Championship fans that want to have a say on this one as well, because I think that this is going to be something that does get a lot of people talking. But that will wrap it up for today's video, guys. Stay tuned on the channel tomorrow. We will have the Championship roundup coming out. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.